5.4, you're going to have some homework, you're going to have a quiz for 5.4. There's no new material in 5.4. So I'm just going to take a moment to summarize what it says, and then we're going to move on to our last section that we have for this unit. Okay, so there's no new material in section 5.4 that we're going to talk about. So what section 5.4 does is it just summarizes of the factoring steps. Factoring will be so important for your future, even if you're just going to college algebra and then you're going to stop. Okay, you will use factoring a lot in that class. But if you're going to go into pre-calculus after that, you're going to use factoring even more in that class. So factoring can become a big deal. So our book, what they do is they say, okay, we're going to pause for just a moment. We're going to summarize what we've learned, and then there's some more problems. So I've put a few extra homework problems from section 5.4 and another quiz so that you can get another great quiz grade and bump that up. So there's basically just 3 steps to what we know. So this is just summarizing what we know. Step number 1, if I give you a problem on the test, if you encounter a problem on the homework, step number 1, the very first thing you should ask yourself is what we just asked ourselves on the last problem of the previous video, which is there a common factor? If there is, factor it out. Do that first. Make your numbers smaller. Okay, get rid of any extra variables. It makes your life easier when you're going to factor things. So is there a common factor? If there is, factor it out. That is step 1. Step 2. Step 2 just asks, how many terms are there? Because you have a limited number of things that you know how to factor at this point in this class. Okay, that's not on you. That's just on factoring's tough. It takes some effort. Okay, so here we go. How many terms? Well, we know how to factor things with 4 terms. Well, we know how to factor some things with 4 terms, but I'm not going to trick you in this class. 4 terms. How did we learn to factor something with 4 terms? What is our process that we use? Grouping. Boom. Yes. If you see 4 terms, if you're looking at the problem, you've taken out the common factor, and you see that it has 1, 2, 3, 4 terms, then the only way you know to factor something with 4 terms is by grouping. I'm not going to give you something with 4 terms that you can't group on because I'm trying to teach you to factor. I'm not trying to teach you to be frustrated. Okay, so 4 terms, use grouping. If we have 3 terms, the 3 terms are trinomial. And we had 2 situations with trinomial. If we just had a plain old x squared, okay, if we just had a plain old x squared, what we did is we unfoiled it. And we just drew some parentheses and we asked ourselves, okay, my firsts have to be x times x. What are the factors of the last to add up to the middle? That's what we did. If there was a number in front of the x squared, I'm just going to put an a in front of the x squared. That's the letter the book will use. If you have any other letter, or if you have any other number in front of the x squared, what we did is we used the AC method. So that's what I taught you. I also said if you have another method to factor trinomial, that's fine. I don't care. I am not tied to the AC method. There's nothing spectacular about it. Okay, so if you come into this class and you had a great algebra teacher in high school that he or she taught you how to factor great and you remember, use their method. Okay, that's great. And then the last thing is there's 2 terms. If something has 2 terms, then you have, again, a limited number of things you know how to do. Either it's a difference of squares, or it's a sum or difference of cubes. Those are the only things you know how to factor. If it's not one of those things, just stop, you're done. And then the last thing that I would tell you for factoring is just make sure you factor completely. So if you end up, if you didn't recognize there was a common factor at the very beginning, but then you get to the end and you've got fewer terms and you see it, factor it out then. Okay, factor everything completely. And that's all section 5.4 offers us. It just offers us this summary. It's a little chart that you can go through. You can write this on a 3x5 card, and as you're going through your problems on MyMathLab, you can say, okay, first thing I need to do is there a common factor? And then if there is, you do it. If there's not, then you go, okay, the only thing I know how to do is depending on how many terms, and you do that. So write this down somewhere, use it as a checklist, and practice your factoring. That's section 5.4. That's a short video.